Okay, so vielen Dank erstmal. Erstmal vielen Dank für die Einladung. Das ist wirklich eine Ehre, bei euch hier kurz einen Vortrag zu halten. Ich werde nicht auf Deutsch halten, das ist nicht meine Muttersprache, aber auch Englisch nicht. Aber ich glaube, es ist besser, wenn ich auf Englisch mache, dann andere Leute können auch diese Aufnahme später sehen. Ähm, Die Fragen natürlich können auf Deutsch gestellt werden und ich kann das auch auf Deutsch, Portugiesisch, Englisch, was ihr wollt. Okay, gut. So, switch to English. My username I hope you can see my mouse. Can you put a finger up, thumbs up if you can see my mouse here on the screen?
We can see it.
Okay, great. So my user is Thiago on the public forum Tebook in the coders, and I'm planning today to go over some points here. I'm pretty much sure that most of you are familiar what is a Link 16, but nevertheless, I'd like to go through the major features and nomenclature names going to be using later. Then I'm going to show some real media, videos and heads-up displays and HSGs on with Link 16 Symbology. Then we're going to talk about how we did implement Link 16 idea in Falcon 4 BMS, the challenge and a little bit of the design without getting too much into detail. Then what we have in Link 16 in U4, and since you guys are nice and Micro is a very nice guy, I'm going to show some new features which are coming in 2 weeks in BMS. Okay, so uh, Link 16 is one of the many tactical data link networks, which the modern ones are completely standardized digital communications. You can see here what it meant. There is a network with full of airplanes, aircraft units connected to it. Tactical data links should be in principle secure, jam resistant, high capacity, and so on. That was not always the time, especially not beyond the line of the sight. In the old days, around the 50s, there was a Link 1 network, was a so-called first generation, was used by the NATO, if I remember correctly, for air defense. Then come later Link 4, which was a point-to-point to control military aircraft. Then this kind of first generation of tactical data link networks. Then came the Link 11, A and B. If I remember correctly, A is for air-to-air or maritime, and B is for ground, mostly based on high frequency. And then the modern ones with high capacity and some capability beyond the line of jam resistance and so on, with Link 16. Link 16 is not per se beyond the line of sight, but it can be used as relay. As you can see, maybe in this figure here, this AWACS is relaying further information from, I think, from this P3, from these joint stars here and so on. So there is a relay capability in Link 16. Link 22 is the modern one. Version of the new series. There is the third generation is Link 16, Link 22. The Link 22 was usually known as a not improved Link 11. It's a high frequency based beyond the line of sight and improves a lot, and I think it's under development as far as I know. There is not a lot of information. The topic today is Link 16 though. The Link 16 has any other tactical data link network. It focuses on the following points, which are these bullet points here. In principle, all locations are relative and are being transferred over the Link 16 network. Threats, targets, friend positions are all in the same coordinates, so they can be transferred. Everyone joined the network shares system targeting tracking. That's important. You're going to see some live information on that. Everyone knows where the targets, friendlies, and threats are. They're important when you're shooting stuff down. For example, when you're using in air-to-air picture, for example, fights capability, weapons, fuel, and whatever are transferred via status messages. And fighter-to-fighter information over 16 is important. I'm going to show you today some examples. How you transfer, for example, how you see the information of you about the targeting of your wingman, for example. So this is a very general. I pretty much know that everyone knows that. So we're going to go now into a little bit more detail on how some features of the Link 16. One of the major things is why the Link 16 is also called TADIU J. TADIU is an old name for Link 16. Link 16 is the final one. It is based on the J messages. J messages probably meant historically about joint messages. And the J series message is just used by the third generation network like 16 and Link 22. And there are a bunch of them. You can see here, I think this is the latest one I could found in the internet. There are a bunch of network messages starting with 0, which is for administration management of how you enter on the network, how you update your signals, and how the time slots. I'm going to talk a little bit in a few seconds about it. There is the J2 series, which is probably the most important ones, which is share is sent by all units which are connected to the network. These units are, they share information like precise participant location. So participant is a unit, precise because it sends the coordinates, speed, altitude, and so on, and the ID. There is the air PPLI that you guys know already from BMS, but there are also like the surface, submarines and land grounds points or tracks. If someone is tracking something with a target pod, it's also possible to send PPLI. And there is also the indirect interface, which means that, for example, an AWACS could be getting information from a unit without its own PPLI, but the AWACS could actually gather this information and send over the Link 16 network for other people as a kind of pseudo PPLI. Surveillance. Surveillance, as the name says, comes from radars and other devices, scanning the environment. The one that you know from BMS already, point 4, is the air surveillance, is message J3.2, which is the radar AWACS. At the moment, you just have the WACS. In the future, we may have also from GCI ground radars. But there are also information like electronic warfare, land grounds, air surface, all different messages and so on. Track management, weapons coordination, control. Control is very interesting. Control means also air control can send you information on your heads-up display in your FCR about vectors and flight paths and so on. There are two very important here, which is the J12.6 and J12.5. These ones here are not implemented in U4. This is the information coming from other PPLIs, what they are targeting now. And J12.5 is with information, is the message coming from the AWACS correlating your target with some other PPLI or surveillance track. The J12.7, as far as I know, is not implemented in our tape that we have in BMS. So that means that we don't have that. It's target bearing, so it shows, if according to videos, vector and so on. There are many others ones and so on. Electronic warfare, nothing is known how it's that done, and also very modern ones like airfield status, air platform status, which I share, like fuel, armament, and so on. So the thing is, the J series are based in time slots. These messages are sent by each one of the PPLIs. Each one of the units joining the Link 16 over the so-called time slots. A time slot is a small, tiny portion of a frame. And a frame is a so-called basic unit of recurring time for Link 16. Link 16, you can imagine, is a region in the spectrum. If I remember correctly, I did not put the number here, but I think it's 960 megahertz to 1215 megahertz, if I remember correctly, is where the Link 16 is active, is in the L band. And this is one, in this frequency region, a frame is 12 seconds, which, composed like by 5,500 sorry, 1536 time slots. And in each one of these time slots, which is one of these small squares here, these messages are transmitted. Okay, so you can imagine how many of these frames there are in one day, and each one of the time slots is 7.81 milliseconds. They have an address, and each one of the units know when they should transmit. How they know that? I'm going to go one slide back. By when they enter the Link 16 network, they get all information and synchronization required to transmit in the correct time slot. Without getting too much into detail, Link 16 is a jamming resistant. This frequency is not static. The frequency, there is some frequency hopping depending on the configuration of the network. And you can imagine now that all these messages here, they should be grouped by some interest of the unit. For example, I'm going to give you, if I am on a F-15 flying sweep, I'm not interested to know about maritime tracks and so on, right? Or, for example, if I am a non-electronic warfare unit, I'm not interested in reading information from J14 or other J3.7 methods. So the J16 or Link 16 was implemented then so that inside each one of these different frequencies, which are possible in Link 16, there are the so-called network participation groups, which is listed on the left side of this slide. This is very easy to understand. This is exactly a group of messages which are transmitted for a given goal. For example, okay, if I want to just get information from about initial entry and I'm connected to the Link 16 network, I'm only interested on the NPG1 because NPG1 is initial entry NPG, and NPG1 contains all these guys here, okay, for the network management. So I know that if I'm connected to NPG1 kind of part of the network, I'm gonna be able to get this kind of message. When I'm connecting, there is a round trip message, which are important to get the relative position of my aircraft compared to the others and so on. If I am transmitting my PPLI, so this participant precision location and ID, I'm interested to go to read NPG6 message, which is, I'm going to go back here, this kind of message here, okay? This here's JChoose message, which are important for this purpose. If I am the electronic warfare, I'm interested to read on the NPG10s and so on. And fighter to fighter, which is the cherry of the cake in the 16, is the NPG19. So you can ask, how do I know where to read these NPGs? And now comes the channels. So the channel in Link 16, you have 128 channels from 0. You can have from 0 to 127. And each channel is designed, and this must be designed on the ground, okay, with a given set of NPGs. For example, let's take a look at channel here, so at net 0, which is a synonym for channel, okay, net 0. It has a RTTB. RTTB here is the round trip broadcast, which is used for synchronization. There is a surveillance, there is 128 time slots for surveillance, NPG7, PPLIB broadcast, and so on. Surveillance, management, electronic warfare, indirect PPLI, and so on. For Net 1, there is PPLI-A and fighter, 160 time slots for fighter. So when you get into your F-16 or F-15, the network definition file, which is information is prepared on the ground by a large group of officers, is loaded in your MIDS, okay, or your JTIDS with this information. So your MIDS will know that at channel 0 or net 0 there is this kind of NPGs, and it's going to read according to this time slot. So if you set, for example, a channel or net 1 to read for surveillance, it will not be able to see anything because there is no surveillance J message being shared there. Okay, so this is how it works, and I can just point you to some sources. I'm not disclosing here classified material. There is a company called Viasat, which are probably my best friend. They shared a lot of information in the internet, how the network works in terms of structure, and you can read more about that in these PDFs. I have more sources at the end. So far so good from microphone and images. Thumbs up, please. Yo, okay, thank you very much. So now you can imagine that there is a lot of nomenclature. I'm gonna just go through it because I'm going to be using that. So a net I just showed is one of these possible 128 channels, okay? And a net can have multiple NPGs, yeah? So that's what I'm telling here. And net is a synonym for channel, okay? You can imagine this is not what you know from normal, radio communication. This is not a frequency. A net or a channel is a pattern of frequency hopping. The Link 16 is a TDMA network. It means that the time slots are shared by different nets. You can see here that this time slot here is shared by the net 127. It's there and so on. So there is some overlapping and some frequency hopping in this regard here, which is very interesting because this makes then the Link 16 very, very, very resistant to jamming. So JTIDS is the only name that there's a very nice video that it's on the BMS forum that I shared from the United States Air Force explaining the Joint Tactical Information Distribution System, which is early Link 16 idea from the 70s. The MIDS is an equipment that most of the European aircraft, and your F-16 has it. It's called also MIDS LVT, low volume terminal. JU is a JTIDS unit. It's everything that connects to the Link 16. So that means that all these aircraft here, these air base, these US Marine Corps, whatever, they are JUs. Okay. PPLI is again precise participant location identification. Each GU transmits its own data, and that's a lot of data, to a specific net channel with a PPLI NEJ. For example, this could be, for example, if it's a PPLI-B, it's a non-CT unit, it's going to be transmitting here in this case to net 0 for this configuration here. And there is a kind of series of air tracks you're going to be using, which is PPLI track. So every JU unit transmits on information. It's going to be a track on your displays. Surveillance track, generated only by C2 JU-like units, like AWACS, transmit only NPG surveillance. Fighter tracks, generated only by G units which you subscribed as your flight team and on the F-16. Okay, so do you guys have any questions so far, or can I move on more to the implementation?
Yep.
Ein bisschen lauter?
Sorry, the fighter tracks, they don't yet exist in BMS. Is that correct?
If you wait until the end of the talk, you're going to see what's going to happen.
Okay.
In U4, there is no fighter tracks. Okay, let me continue then. So let's take a look now on the real implementation of the Viper. In the F-15, there is no images and figures, just a few snapshots so far, but the Viper community, the real Viper community, shares a lot on the YouTube and so on, so I can share you some unclassified images and videos with you. So there is special PPLIs for the F-16 and also for our aircraft, the so-called flight and team JUs. Okay, what they are? They are units that are connected to the network that you subscribe, that you put in your ICP. And these guys they get special symbols, as you know, in your HST, your B-scope, heads-up display, and your helmet. In the heads-up display and B-scope, you can see there are these blue circles, large blue ones here with the number 1, 2. You are yourself, and maybe in this case, it guy's the number 4. Sorry for that. The number 3, the number 1, and number 2. The 4, it's not shown, it's in the middle. Okay. In the heads-up display, it gets these green circles, and they are only present for tapes newer than 5.2. Actually 4.7 to be. There is some indication that 4.7 already has it. The flight members also shows range with a green circle. That, so you can see here the range 6.1 nautical miles and the number on top. And the team members show only green circles, which in this HST figure here is not shown. But on this heads-up display, they also show, but they're going to show in a few slides another example. Okay, this is special PPLIs. They are transmitted usually in frequency every few seconds. Okay, it's updated, and it's line of sight. Okay, so if you don't have line of sight of it, it's an UHF, you cannot see it, and so on. Okay, it's updated. There is another very important thing that you guys know, I guess, the primary data link target. There's a typo here, sorry for that. Is a link 16 track that a pilot has designated for special interest. You know that you can do that by TMS up on your HSG, and this thing is marked with an octagon. Yeah, this was the case you can see here for a very old MLU. I think it's tape 3. There is just the Angels 08 on the bottom of this octagon. In the middle, you have to believe me, there is an aircraft. The range is unknown. And in this case here, you can see the octagon around 1 ppli, your number 1. Okay. You see here also the altitude 2K and the aspect. This is in the low aspect. You are on his left side 20 degrees. Okay, and 1.9. You can also see this octagon in this figure here in the HST is also marked in HST and B scope. Okay. So and of course different tape variant and block, these things change the format. What's important to understand, and this is something that people did not get at the beginning, because especially the experience with this other flight sim out there, is link 16 is not exactly the thing. It lags, it's imprecise, and it requires correlation. And I'm going to explain a little bit of these two things, of these three things. The first thing is the lag and the imprecision, right? You can see here in this figure there's a Danish MLU with tape 5. You can see this is a PPLI of my number 2, 0.1 nautical miles, so it's very close. Number 2 is on the top. We are at 9,000. It matches my altitude here. Okay, 20 left, and the symbol is here, PDLT, and the aircraft is here. Okay, so this is what happens, and this is not because it's not misaligned and so on. When aircraft start maneuvering, when they get closer, the symbols do not overlap. Okay, same thing happens for a Portuguese. I don't know what is the tape of the Portuguese ones. It's MLU, but probably also 5, 6-ish tape, and you can see the aircraft here on the left, and this guy here is the number 1 PPLI, very close, that 6, 1K matched everything. So it's very imprecise. You should not expect, and that was some people that people were complaining, oh, my circles on the heads-up display, they do not overlap. But this is for real. What is correlation? So correlation is something very interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit later also, is determination that a system track or a local sensor track, okay, that was reported by my system represent the same object or point, and so on. So it means that when I'm looking at this HST picture here, okay, does this symbol correlates to my, for example, target pod, FCR, or other any sensor that have my aircraft? And this is a correlation. This requires in sometimes, if I am locking something on my FCR, requires that my mids talk to the APG and say, okay, is it the same thing in the air or not? If it is, then I'm gonna paint in a different way. Or for example, if there are 2 tracks, a fighter track and a surveillance track, the AWACS needs to tell us in the F-16, okay, by the way, you are targeting a surveillance track, you can paint in a different way. This is all correlation, and this needs to be done by additionally on the processing of these tracks. Okay, this is not automatically this is automatically done by the MIDs. The pilot does not have any control on that, but this is something that generates imprecision, lagging, and lack of information. The PDLT is something very interesting. PDLT can be in principle any track. I showed you before the PDLT on the number 3, here the number 1 on the heads-up display, okay? And you can actually lock, let's say, any kind of air track, a surveillance track, even a fighter track, and even a, of course, a PPLI track of any type. So in the simple, and you can do, in principle, you can enhance your SA. What you see very often in videos and figures, the use of PDLT is not for attack. It's more to keep the SA where your section or element leader is. For example, in this case here of this HSD, this aircraft, the number 4, is PDLT its section lead, the number 3. Okay, the number 2 is probably PDLT in his number 1. You cannot see it, and number 1 is PDLT in the number 3, and vice versa. Yeah, so it's very important to keep your SA, especially when you're maneuvering where these guys are. And let me show you here one figure why it's important. One video. It's in the heads-up display and also in the helmet. The target line locator and aspect is shown for PDLT, and this is implemented in BMS, right? Let me show you here this video. You can see here that the PDLT is going to go out of view, and then at the same time appears here the TTLL. You see here D for data link, 28 degrees as a dashed line. Remember, the FCR is a continuous line. Target pod is a dot line. So it's nice to have your flight lead, section lead on that, so you have direct information in which side of this guy is in aircraft. You have no information about range, but you know at least where it is and so on. So when I normally fly, I fly always with the PDLT on. Another thing which is very nice, which there is information on the internet available for everyone, is the J12.6 message. Okay, the target of interest of all flight members are shown on the heads-up display in your helmet. It's the same you can see here. This is very imprecise. Why that? Because your flight members 1, 2, 3, or 4, depends where you are, is sharing his APG information, his radar information, and your MIDS is going to be extrapolating that. In that case, you can see you have a target. This is this dot here. You can check the video later if you wish. This dot is aircraft moving at 1.3 nautical miles and is being targeted. You see a small square. Our TD box, our target designate box, a little bit larger in the F-16. This is for a flight member, number 2, and you can see it does not match, but at least gives you more or less direction where this guy is. Myself, you can see this aircraft here, this is the TLL, is targeting something here on the bottom. Yeah, and my number 2 is targeting this guy here on the, in front of me, 1 point something nautical miles from him. Okay, from me. Okay, 1.3 nautical miles from me. For the F-16, this is not correct. Exactly. The target of interest is shown for the flight members, and the toy is shown for flight team and donor with different symbology on the HST, B scope, and I think also in the HUD. Okay, for the harm attack display. The F-15 that you have in the BMS does not have helmet display, so we don't have this information for him. Okay, so this is very useful because then you know who is targeting to who in your heads-up display in your helmet. So it's very useful to keep SA during BVR combat. And I can tell you it's not used for dogfight. Why is that? Because it's not updating in real time, very fast enough for dogfighting. Okay, so you can imagine that Link 16 can lead to overload of information. That happens. It's a real snapshot of heads-up of HSD doing a red flag. This can be found in the internet. I think this is Danish. Link 16 Data Network and Nachtfliegen. There's a Nachtflug. Yeah, it's Danish, isn't it? Doing red flag. And you can see here that you can say whatever you want. It's everything overlapping. I just know this is blue, this is green, and there is some reds there. So no one is shooting close to me. The bad guys are there. But more than that, I cannot read anything, right? And you can make things even more complicated. Let's make an FF check. And then all 4 things here overlap, and they have priority, they overlap, and everything is out. So it's okay. I get a lot of mode 4 greens, which is good. I have no yellows here, so it's all friendlies. I'm good to go, and so on. You can also see here the bullseye, the number 7 team member. I'm number 4 with PDLT number 3 here, and that's it. There is not much more to read here. And this is something that people were also complaining, oh, but is everything overcrowded and so on. Yeah, exactly. This is Link 16. And then you can choose if you want information or no information. Link 16 is also a real-time thing. It's not like I put the address and everything is going to be static. The filtering of tracks is a dynamic system. What I mean by that, imagine that in a red flag as well in BMS, there are tons of airplanes sending information in real time, and your MIDs only displays in all your displays up to 40 tracks. Of these 40 tracks, 10 of them are reserved for FCR tracks. The other are reserved following a rule, a priority system, which is known. Okay. First of all, the PPLI of flight and team are always stored. It's always shown. So the blue guys are always shown. Of course, I'm interested to know where they are. The mission objectives track, that means that what the AWACS sent to me, for example, armored battalion, an intercept mission, okay, is sent by the AWACS, the track. So this is always stored there. It's a mission objective. Flight and team members toy. I mean, these guys here stand by. These guys here on the heads up and on the B scope, they're always stored as well. So if you can imagine here, I'm going to have 4 here for the F-16, maybe 1 more here, then maybe here more, so 8, 1, 8 for these guys. I already have here 17. Then I have the flight and team members short lines. Okay, every guys that the short lines, they are also there. They also occupy 1 slot. So I have here short lines. So it's going to be here 25. Then I have the donors, which are 8 in advanced tapes, toys and shots and so on. And only then I'm going to have surveillance tracks, the other PPLIs, and so on. PTLT is always stored, depends what it is. It's going to be always shown. So if you can imagine, if I'm already on the 40 max number of tracks with these guys at the beginning, and one of these toys are dropped, then suddenly one surveillance track reappears on the NIC 16. And this is what you're going to see in this video. I want to show you 2 things, okay? I'm going to take a look first on this blub here, okay? And these tracks here, okay? This is a real time. So these gonna guys disappear up here. Also, take a look. First of all, it's interesting just to comment this guy here. Do you guys know what this image here means? What this guy is doing, this pilot? He enters the Link 16 zoom with the pink switch. Okay, so he clicks to see where his flight lead is. The number 1 and there is in front of them. They are more kind of offsetted box. Number 4 and his PTLT. Then he goes out and see here, this guy is blinking. You saw that. I'm going to go back 1 slide, a video. Take a look here. It's blinking. Why is that? Because very likely, this guy here disappeared. Someone lost the connection. More 1 slot in the on the mids got free. Then this guy was shown. Okay, you can see there. Okay, there, and then went away again, and so on. So the tracks are being displayed or not. Of course, surveillance tracks, and this is not surveillance track, this is a fighter track labeled with an enemy, is shown the whole time because it's an important track. But the PPLIs and other surveillance near to you, they drop, came, and go as the system desires. And you can see here that sometimes, if no one gets a track, neither the AWACS nor your fighter donors, a enemy track can appear suddenly very close. Take a look here at this spot here at the end of the video. Okay, just this spot. You can see here that suddenly, so this is a neutral fighter track, continues at Angels 25, and then suddenly at the end appears a what looks like a fighter track enemy at Angels 15, very close to your number 6 here. This was not before there. So either it was not logged by anyone, or it was not got by the surveillance by the AOX before. So it's a very dynamic system that tracks appear and disappear. This is a real video of doing a red flag, which is more or less like I guess a BMS campaign full of tracks. Okay, so this is more or less an introduction about Link 16. Let's talk about how we implemented that in BMS, then what we have in BMS now, and what we are going to have in a few weeks. So one of the things that is important to understand when you are coding such a system in Link 16 in a flight simulator like a BMS in a personal computer, is that you need to very clear for you that what difference between a simulation and emulation. Simulation, this is a just copy a thing from Wiki, is that models the internal workings and dynamics of a system to replicate its function of at fundamental level. So internal workings is scary, isn't it? Because imagine you're going to be implementing how a MIDS or a fighter data link and so on is implemented in the real aircraft. What you're looking for actually is something like an emulation. You're looking like to reproduce the output. What you want is to have this picture appearing perfect for the pilot in your personal computer. And prioritize like fidelity to observer behavior. You're not looking now to implement the MIDS details. So the question that I had when I started thinking about the Link 16 in autumn last year, like it was October last year, when I decided to go for the U4, was how can I capture the essence of Link 16 without design a MIDS? There is some information of MIDS, the internet, how it works in terms of electronics, but you cannot really implement that. So you need to be based on videos and figures and other information I'm going to share with you. And the most important is how do you interface all that with the rest of the avionics? Yeah, the MIDS is one equipment that does all the processing, but you have your HSD, your SMS, right? You have your FCR, your APG. You have the whole heads-up display and the helmet-mounted display. You have your target pod, and you need to share information and so on. So these two questions I can sum up in the following. So my approach was actually to understand first how the MIDS work and try to figure out what are the essentials. The Link 16 equipment, the J series, came from a very many series of equipment. The class 1 is a very old one. This class 2 was ship, ground, or air. This is mostly used in old aircraft, as far as I know, with high power. There is a high power amplifier group with 1,000 watts. The MIDS LVT1, that's the one that you have in the F-16 and F-18 Aerofighter, has a 200 watts emission power. The AWACS has a high power version of it with 1,000 watts. Sorry, I forgot the unit here, which allows the AWACS to send information far away. The F-15, as far as I could find, use a different version. Is a 480 watts version of the LVT3, which is also called often fighter data link. Okay, so the important things for the implementation was we need to have a transmission receive over channel nets, okay, and should be designed for each campaign channel. You need to have a network with channels, and these networks, the information to be transmitted and received should be implemented by message. Of course, I cannot implement time slots. Why not? The time slots are synchronized in 7 point something milliseconds. Which it's very hard to do that in a multiplayer game. So the idea was to implement something very similar adapted for C++ multiplayer code. And of course, the NPGs. Not everyone can hear every message in every channel. And of course, what I heard many times, don't make God's eye. Okay, we don't want to make the other thing. So then I was sitting the train in autumn 2023, going back from Heidelberg to Mannheim. And I was thinking that was the first draw I want to share with you how I imagine how Link 16 could work. In Falcon, we have aggregated flights and deaggregated aircraft. You know that there is the bubble, right? So I need something that stores all this information for me. The Link 16 network, okay, is a net, has a network inside. And the aircraft, which is symbolized for me for the dashed line here, would have the terminal. At that time, I thought that the F-16 did have the so-called JTIDS, which is the very early version of the terminals, but later I figured out that was the FTL. Okay, so this is terminal. So since there is not enough information and is not required, the terminals for aircraft in BMS, they're all modeled with the same functionality. The symbology is different, okay? There is some symbology difference between them, but the internal workings and capacity, the F-16 has only 40 tracks, the F-16 40 tracks, the STF, and the F-15 has 50 tracks. But the communication between the different avionics and so on, should be, enabled with the terminal. Also, user interface, data cartridge implemented, and so on. So that was the first big picture that I implemented. So I started that, and then winter 2023-24 and shared. That was the first code that was written completely open. So the terminal and the network. So what I came to the idea is that the network is something that is developed for each one of the teams in a BMS game. So you have Team Korea, Team North Korea. They have, if North Korea has network, and each one of these networks has different nets. And a net's a channel. Yeah, remember that I told you a net. I'm going to go back many slides now. Don't worry. This is a net. So the network is going to have different channels. Okay, and each one of these channels. Where are you? Each one of these channels is going to have now the different network participation groups. Okay, so what I did then was developed for each one of these channels different network participation groups. The first version had PPLI, PPLIB, surveillance, mission, air control, electronic warfare, and fighter. So it was just not implemented, but everything already in place. There are placeholders, the fighter to fighter, electronic warfare, and mission, but we have PPLI and surveillance. So this is how it look like. For example, if I remember correctly here, this is a TE for Team 1, this is United States. You can see channel 0 has PPLI A and B and surveillance. The channel 1 has mission. 25 is, I just invented numbers based on this figure that the company Viasat was so friendly to share with us. Okay, so this is more or less implemented and so on. So for your reference, this is automatically defined in the MIDs. So I did in such a way that the MIDs is loaded with the network definition file automatically. So PPLI surveillance is in channel 0. You cannot change that. And as an F-16, F-15 pilot, there is no such ability in the rear airplane. So I did not implement that at all in the user interface. This is done by a very large group of officers implementing that, and I hard-coded that in the network definition file. This is the proto file. Okay. The other channels, they are free. You can set that accordingly in your cockpit. But of course, if you set in a channel that does not exist, you will not get any information. The mission channel, which is not implemented in BMS, is where the AWACS share information with you. The fighter channel is not implemented in U4, is where your donors, flights, and teams share information with you. And the SEED, which is, I call it electronic warfare channel, is where the SEED platforms share information. Okay, and different NPGs can be in different channels to not overcrowd the different channels and so on. Okay, so maybe one mission package is going to be here in just GIS channel 25 fighter to fighter. Honor package is going to be here in only G85. There is going to be some separation of the tracks. So far, so good. Any questions so far? Okay. So you can imagine.
What if two nations are allied to each other? Are they in the same channel, or do they have different channels still?
I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but allies share network, friendlies just share AWACS calls. But I'm going to talk about that later, why this decision was made.
Okay, thanks.
One more question.
Go for it.
I know that NATO plays in peacetime with red and blue channels. Do you build these channels for the future, or is
Yes,
it not?
I'm going to show you
Okay.
how I prepare that for the future. Mhm.
Okay. Thanks.
One
Okay.
last question.
Yes.
I was impressed that you made this little chart in 20 minutes, since this is the time you need from Mannheim to Heidelberg.
You mean this one here? This one here, you mean? Yeah,
Yes.
the thing is, that was I spent most of the time was reading, right? Because you need to understand how the things work and what I cannot do and then what I should do. What I cannot, there was many versions of the Link 16 in my head, and the first Link 16 was really with synchronization and so on, and this went, down when I thought the multiplayer will not work. So we need to adapt when you look at the code. And BMS code, there is some old stuff there which really is bad. You need to rewrite everything and so on. The coders did that. So this is a general overview how to look like. But at the end, there are some variations here. For example, the aggregated ones were not implemented in the first version and so on. The heads up display, and there's some variations here, but this is a kind of general overview after a long thinking how it should be.
Cool.
So
Thanks.
variants. So you can imagine that BMS as a study sim of the Viper, we need to have all versions. And here I need to give a big shout to three guys, Cougar, Leech, and Raptor. But Cougar and Leech did a huge work of research with help of Icon for the IDF variants about different cockpit panels. On your right hip, you have the mids, and there are different variations with the data link, without data link, where the knob is, and we have many of these implemented. The ICP pages, how to look like for different variants. There is a kind of lot of videos going through and see how they go and so on. We implemented 3 of them. So these are a lot of work, and Leech and Cougar here did the research, most of the research here to implement these guys. So kudos for them. We have that. Also, large research work to figure out what was the capability of each one of these aircraft. A lot of old manuals, unclassified, and videos and photos, and talk to some pilots here helping out to figure out. Here you see this table that I got from the great manual done by Micro. The left side shows capability of IDM or not, if it has Link 16 or not, how many Link 16 flights are shown. It's a 1 to 4 flight or no at all. If there is a team, 1 to 4 or no. If there is donors, and how many. You see that the Korea ones, the Korea ones 52s just have 4 donors, 4 teams, 4 flights, while the CMs versions, they have 448. You see the difference? You can also have here the cheap Greek ones. They have no. I'm not sure here, Micro, why you forgot the advanced half, but I guess this is missing here. Okay.
Noted.
Yeah. Murph is gonna look here because he took over here. So at the right side, you see how symbology should be. PDLT, where is everything, not everything, expanded data. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. It has, doesn't have. Guys, you cannot imagine how much work was to research that and to implement that, because we need to do that properly and so on. All variations. Sometimes the Greek ones are the most annoying ones because they have something that the others do not have, and vice versa. So it's very complicated. And Leech was as our own pain in the ass. He was very detailed. He had very good eyes for that. So this was very nice to implement all these aircraft. So everything, I am very proud that we implement all of that. So talk about now the Link 16 with the campaign air testing order. They're going to answer this question about the teams. The generation of track numbers. Remember that I told you at the beginning that the Link 16, when you send a PPLI, you send your ID, right? So the ID is called a track number. There is a kind of messed up nomenclature about what's a track number and a source track number. A track number is a PPLI ID. A source track number is what you put in your MIT. So this guy here, OCA Strike, a ROCF, is one of these not so advanced MIDs, has a track number which is going to be used 3320. The flight get a track number is a 4 digits, okay, which follows the rule of 0 to 7, it's octal, but starts from 110 up to 7777, the flight. The aircraft itself of this flight is going to get an additional digit. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's if it's a single ship up to a 4 ship. Okay, that was the best idea that you came to, so that the flight, as in the real one, has the same track number and the last digit changes. Okay, that was generated on the server side. There's a lot of multiplayer code being implemented, and there is, for me, it was a very steep learning curve to understand how to share the information when the servers in 2D and 3D took me some neurons to code that correctly. And here, Matteo Zeifer, another coder, helped me out a lot to figure out to that properly. The message, the channels that each flight, you can imagine that if I'm in a package like LCA Strike, okay, I want that the aircraft inside the package has the same channels. For the U4 did not play a role because we just did PAPLIs and surveillance, but I want from the beginning on to have that as a placeholder for the next version, so I just could implement directly. And then I did that. So the fighter channel, I have the BMS code has 2 kinds of fighter channels: defensive air-to-air missions, like DCA, bar caps, intercepts. They are normally in one fighter channel. You can see here, these bar caps for this campaign, I think is second campaign in Korea. This one uses fighter channel, NPG fighter channel, NPG 19, yeah, is on net channel 2. And this package is offensive mission, is not a pure air-to-air, is on fighter channel 087. Okay, if these guys want to get fighter tracks from these guys, they need to go to 002. Okay, this is how it works. This is implemented, by the way. You can change everything. Mission channel, we have 3 of them. You can have here 087, 043 in this for this campaign, and there is more one I forgot here for this campaign. And special channels, only seeds, only aircraft doing seeds have that. This guy here has 043. This is not doing seed, okay? So and this guy here has none, but of course he can set if he wants, okay? So this is all implemented and so on. So let's take a look. We're talking about the HO, how it was designed. I will not talk about the code anymore. I think it's more than enough for you guys. If you have questions how it's implemented more in detail, you can go more in the Q&A
One more.
at the end. But I cannot show everything. There is some NDA that I cannot show code details. This is the maximum that I can show you. This is this guy here became a very long code later. But let's skip this way. You can ask at the end. So how it's implemented. So let's stick to the ATO. The ATO works like this way. So the ATO has a color code, and this answers the question that someone asked before. The color code means the network. Okay, in a campaign like KTO, where all teams, USA, RKO, so Korea and Japan are allies, they share the same network. They have the same color. Okay, so they all have the blue color here. In a tactical engagement ATO, I decided to make the teams are not allies, they are just friends. They share AWACS calls, but they do not share the network. So they can have different networks. Like here, this one here, this is green. This guy here is a USA. This is team 1, if I remember correctly. Okay, this is going to have one network, and this is going to be South Korea with a blue is another, and so on. So in general is that friendlies share AWACS voice calls, allies share AWACS voice plus link 16 information. Why I did that is very easy to understand here. Okay, I'm going to show the data cartridge in a few minutes. The idea is exactly that in a campaign, everyone should be having the same information. In a tactical network, you want to have some ability to go to another team, for example, by setting different configurations on the MIDs. For example, to have a network red, a network blue, or network training and network training B or whatever. And you can do that with F16. The F-16 has, if you remember here, this data cartridge. There is one left side which is called file A, and the right side call it file B, which is right now, it's everything works here. You can load it and so on, but it's a placeholder. Why is that? Because there was a request which someone is going to be unnamed here, okay, so that these guys could take off with some track number, file A, as allies, and then when they enter the training area, they could each one call the file B on the data cartridge, and they would have different files B, and they would become, then they would be in different networks, and one would be enemy of each other, and they would not see each other. Okay, this can only be done on a tactical engagement. This is not fully implemented, but this is planned, so it's everything already there. I think this answers the question of one of you guys. I don't know who asked that, because you guys are very small in my monitor here, but this is this can be easily finished here and so on. It's going to be implemented in a near version. Okay, so this is the data cartridge. Kudos for another coder that had implemented all this interface, JJ, and I'm not showing here the brief page, which is implemented by someone who should be in the audience, which is Tech. Tech, where are you? You are Tech. Nice. So he did that, and also fixed a lot of bugs when he was doing that in the briefing code. But the idea is that this flight B part here is a placeholder for these future training purposes. Okay, what you need most for your operations is file A. The left side, you can get everything that you want. You don't need to change anything. The channels, anyway, voice channels are not implemented. Number call sign you can change, but you're gonna make everything crazy in the RPPLI if you don't do that properly. Flight leads only important for mission channel. When the AWACS talks to you, only the flight lead is allowed to answer the AWACS. There is an option which is not implemented in U4 for the mission channel. The AWACS calls you, can you please intercept group at bullseye, blah, blah, blah. And you can click on USB, yes or no. Don't bother me. Yes, I do. This kind of stuff. ETR is the external time reference, which is not implemented in U4. Taken, implemented, and of course all track numbers. And the track numbers where you're playing. Yeah. So these guys here, for example, you need to be very careful to not write 2 times the numbers and this kind of stuff. This is going to make your Link 16 very crazy. Okay. So DTC load and ramp start. This was done by Leach, myself, and JJ did a lot on that to make it proper. This is a copy of the ramp start. You know how to do that. After everything is done on and you have navigation meets on, wait that this guy here appears, and then wait for the find synchronizes. Should be pretty much automatically. If you messed up and this guy does not synchronize, this guy does not appear, restart everything here. It should be good. Okay, the system it needs some time. If I remember here from videos, we figure out it's about 20 to 30 seconds, so it's more or less what we have. Okay, this is the typical up to page 5. There is page 6 and 7 for a MMC airplane. I think you know everything here. In principle, synchronization fine. This is not implemented in U4. Network time reference. Your aircraft is a reference time for the whole network. Right now is only AWACS. If you have no AWACS, you don't need to implement that. You don't need to tweak that. It's done automatically by the AI. Track numbers. Link 16, this is your flight guys. You can only point yourself here. This is the team. Okay, they cannot be repeated. The donors, 8 places, and so on. Okay, let's go to the symbology. So some things that we did, and then what's going to change for the next version. The blue ones we implemented, flight 1 to 4, 5 to 8. They are here. You can also have here. They can provide PPLI only in U4. The PPLI, remember, is location and identification of this guy. You can PDLT all these guys here. You can see the octagon here around the number 3 in this case. You see in the F16, the donors 1 to 8, they have small dots in the middle. Normally, what I do, or normally the standard configuration in BMS is your flights, of course, 1 to 4. If you're not a strike package is going to be in the team, and then the rest of your guys, 1 and 3, are going to be the donors 1 to 8. Should be more than enough there. You can, of course, change that. You also have air PPLIs, so general surveillance tracks or whatever. So sorry, general PPLIs of aircraft which are normally not in our package. Yeah, they are just in the circle without any information there. One thing that I am very proud to do that, because it took a while to figure out what was the best way to do that, was expanded data for PPLI. So PPLI transmits a lot of data, and this information that is transmitted, and this is something that appears on top of your displays. Like this nice figure that Micro did, call sign, the aircraft model, altitude, course, airspeed, the stores, going to talk a little bit about that, and a lot of information here. It appears on the HST, of course, when your cursor goes over any PPLI or any track, to be more precise. And when it goes through, when you have the SOI, as in this picture here, on the B-scope in your FVCR, it also appears as a single line. Okay, to not overcrowd. Remember that the second line FCR is the target information. So there's always one single line in the FCR, but the same information appears as a double line, 2 line for MMC aircraft on the HST. Okay, this is implemented. You can see here, this is in more in detail for a PPLI. Just a few information about the stores here. The stores appears, always the M and S appears, so medium range and short range. There is no long range symbology. I think the Phoenix, when it was active for the F-14s, they were not there appearing here. They used to have another Link 16. I'm not sure about the latest versions, how to look like. But we have in Link 16 just M and S, so when it's 0, it's 0, 0, F-15, 8 long range can be Slammers or Sparrows. When there is no additional loadout, there is nothing appearing here. When there is different symbology, A to J. And the symbology here is very tricky to do, because in principle, the first thing is just appears up to 9. If you have more than 9 ordnance, it's going to be capped at 9. And not all ordnance is shown. There is a priority system, which I don't know by heart anymore, which I remember correctly. Guided missiles are prioritized over general bombs. If an aircraft is carrying, I don't know, a AGM 65 and a MK82, weird configuration, just the AGM is going to be shown. When AGM is fired, then the general bomb is going to be shown. So you need to be aware of that. The source track number is the track number of the aircraft. The UHF of the flight, if you want to talk to them. The fuel is updated every 30 seconds. It's an update message, and mission channel is shown, and fighter channel if you want to look what this guy is targeting, right? You can do. And track quality is how good the quality is in precision in Link 16. This is implemented. A surveillance track is a little bit more weak in information. You have the track number is generated only by the AWACS. This is generated on the server side, and this was tricky to do and to spread all over the clients in correct way. The strength can be 1 to 4, depends on the precision information. Aircraft type, sometimes if the aircraft type is not known by your site, in general it's unknown. If it's known the type, this is the nomenclature. If it's known, even MiG-29S. Airspeed, I don't know how Micro managed to get a fighter at 042 airspeed. He was on the ground, I guess, right, Micro? When you took this figure here, I have no idea. Quality and no altitude. So surveillance tracks are only available if AWACS active, is a J32 message automatically received via the joint data net. This is implemented in the channel 0, yeah, and is only available NPG7 is there. It is there as I showed you. Okay, this is all implemented in your Link 16. Also, what you have, all symbology that you saw before, PPLIs with symbols, PPLIs 5 to 8, PDLT and PDLT of air track. Okay, also engine information appearing only for old tapes. Okay, just everything as you know you have playing around with you for. How I use PDLT. PDLT allows you to bug two targets, right? Here in this figure, you see here the HST with an SU25 PDLT. Okay, you can see this guy here at 28 nautical miles. I took the image at different times, so that's why this shows 7K and 10K here, but it's the same guy. And as you can see here, the TTLL for the bugged guy at 21 degrees. This is this guy here, okay. And you can also see here my TG. This is locked bugged a general PPLI. You see here it's correlated, it's filled. So this is the TG box there, and just 23 matches, okay. And you can see here the TLL on the helmet display pointing to this guy. So doing this way is one way to get, to keep your SA very high. So you have here your FCR and your PTLT. Okay, are you tired or should I go to new features? Yes.
I think no one is sleeping yet, so
Okay, so I'm going to go to new features. So the first thing that I did now for the upcoming U5 is going to be 2 weeks out, is that the PPLI aggregated, which is the flight, guys were increased, were generated. Yeah, we have PPLIs, so flights are shown in the campaign, and the range for MIDs, FDL, GJS, and AOX were increased. There was a huge discussion, remember, that everyone broke, oh, this is all bugged, I cannot see surveillance tracks and so on. Yeah, no, it's because the range that were implemented for the AWACS were different. And now you can see here in the display, you can see here these 160 nautical miles. You can see tracks very far away, okay, from myself. The AWACS here, everything is implemented. The AWACS got 430 kilometers based on open source information, how the radar range is for a fighter-sized aircraft. You can see here a PPLI fighter aircraft deaggregated as a normal aircraft that you can see in 3D world. You see here the normal expanded data. It gets the call sign with 21. There's a flight lead, the track number, all information. And this is the new PPLI for an aggregate flight. What you cannot see in the 3D world is just in the 2D campaign, but implemented that, so you can see you get expanded data. You have the fuel. Okay, you have its frequency. You cannot talk to him, of course, but it's aggregated. You have the track number of the flight lead, and to indicate that is a flight, you get his call sign. Let me see if you guys know what's this call sign. VR is Viper, right? Viper, choose 0, and the 0 here means this is a flight, it's aggregate. So you know this guy's aggregate from is very far away. When this guy get deaggregated, this guy's gonna become probably 21, 22. Right, and you're going to see in your display. So this is implemented. You have a very, very, very large information now, a lot of information from very far away. So this is implemented in that sense. What else you have? Something that was annoying because it was mostly from my own is the surveillance tracks. You could not distinguish very good from PPLI tracks. Now it's implemented. You can see very nice dash dots as it should be in the manual. This has been correct in that sense. Okay, you see here a normal PPLI track coming on. There is new auto zoom features for the Link 16. You have as you know, the pink Link 16. You can zoom in. It goes to the, I think it's already hot fix, right? And you have here for the F-15. I'm going to just roll with for the guys that fly F-15. You can see the Castle aft. This you can see here. I'm going to go to another page, which is the page. I'm going to do Castle aft. It's going to go directly to the display, and then you can do it here in different ways. You can go to different pages and you do Castle aft. It's going to go, and then if you press Castle aft again, it's gonna zoom in as you do with the Link 16. You see, this is the shortest range where all your flight PPLIs can be seen in the FTL. So it's very similar, implemented in different ways for the different avionics. This is done. The Link 16 was implemented the HUD. So now the HUD has the same information that the HST has. So that means that you can keep your SI very high. For me, it was annoying that sometimes I would have the FCR and the HST, then I would go to the I was doing seed missions and I would lose information from the HST. So now you can have different combinations. You can have FCR plus HUD and everyone is showing the guys. Okay, and of course you can declutter in different ways. Okay, declutter was implemented to not have this overloaded information. You can have declutter where everything is shown, ground, it's not implemented, and team, only the trim tracks are shown, which is very interesting to have instead of have all tracks here. There are tons of new declutter options for Link 16 that we implemented. Wolfman was is Wolfman there?
Yep.
Where is your hand? Ah, you are Wolfman. Hello, Wolfie. So Wolfman helped out to make this code work. We have hands-on declutter, so it's HOTAs. FCR symbology. Shot comes in left, so right. It's going to cycle between all tracks. Here is surveillance, PPLIs, fighter plus. There is no fight, so the fighter, the surveillance are gone. Just surveillance FCRs are here, and then you put here known, which is on the right side. All tracks are gone of the FCR. You can clean up if it's too much on the FCR, then you can get rid of them. Okay, this is how implemented. Additionally, you also implemented a hands-on declutter or hands-up display symbology. So, and also helmet-mounted display. That means when you're going for landing and you don't want to have all these circles annoying you when you're landing, you do comms left, but only when you're geared down and in navigation mode, all symbology goes away except PDLT. So it's very handy to not crash your F-16 on the threshold. Then, which never happens here, of course. There is new decluttering option for JSSD. There are 2 new control pages for the MMC. This one is different ones that you have, and you have all these new options for the page 2, which is new. You have ground targets, ships, SAMs, and some of them implemented, some of them are waiting for being implemented, okay? But most of them are there. There is a hands donor selection, which is new, so make this knob here useful. Let me show the video. I'm going to show here. So I'm going to try to add this guy 15 with a track number 52 whatever PDLT. I click PDLT, go to the donor page. Okay, and then I'm going to type 5. This is new and enter. And then enter, Thiago, enter. Yes, then the track number is going to appear on the ICP there and so on. You can add by hand. And you can also do to everyone. I can go to this AWACS, I guess, there. So it's AWACS, A3. PDLT is 54201, donor, could put this 6, enter there, and enter, and this now it's a PDLT. You can see the symbol now is a normal, and now it has a small dot in the middle, okay? And then there's a couple of rules on what can be added. Read the manual, it's going to be nice. Okay, I don't know if you guys are tired or should I show the next one, but the fighter tracks are implemented in U5.
Go ahead. I think this is, yep.
So the U5 was implemented. That means that now you are gonna be showing in all your displays and avionics fighter tracks. So the J12.6 was implemented. In this case here, what you can see here, my radar is off, okay, because I want to show that. I don't have any contact, but I can see a new kind of air track. You can see here the 876 is the FCR picture, this HSD. The 8, 5, 6, and 7, okay, they are my team slots, 5 to 8. And you can see here that they are transmitting to me their targets from their APG. And this information comes, of course, with an expanded data, which I'm not showing here, but also with angels. And I can PDLT this guy as well. So I can have this information on my all displays. On the heads-up display, on the FCR, the number appears. On this right guy here, there's a different information. So I'm going to show you a video how it looks like of a combat with these guys working on the MFDs. This is myself. There is some jittering because of my joystick has a problem. So you can see here, stop. This guy here is already this HST. This is my donors. I am in this blob here, okay? This is my team guys, 5 to 8. There are 2 donors F-16s, and they start targeting already, okay? There is some tracks here and just 2.5, like, yeah, I would say 50 nautical miles in front of me. Take a look, expand the data. Oh, let me go back so you can show here a little bit. So expand the data, yeah. There is no information. Yeah, remember the F-16 is not able to label tracks, so it's a one strength. There is no, it's unknown. 273 knots and a high precision track. It's a FCR track. I can PDLT this guy. Okay, it's there. My radar is off. I can see the track of my wingy, of my donor actually. No, I think this is a team guy. 33 nautical miles from me. Okay. Then bear with me here. I was trying to send a message for my wingies to lock. Then another guy send another track. This is another guy sending there. Just stand by. I'm gonna manage that. Yeah, because I had the wrong frequency channel. So now it goes. So now from 1 to 4 they show lock lines. So the team and the donors, they don't show lock lines, just the fighter tracks, but my own guys, they showed lock lines. So that's what you see here. Okay, so you see here that one of my guys locked this guy, and in a few minutes, few seconds, I'm gonna see if you wait. Okay, stand by. Yeah, I lost the PDLT because so now all guys locked all these guys here. So you can see here that I have 3 lock lines from my flight. They are locking here, and I know exactly which one is locking what. And the same thing now happens to FCR. The FCR has more information. The FCR does not have the lock lines, but on top of the symbology, remember my FCR is silent here, I have the information which guy is locking who. So in this case here I have the donor 1, which is one of these green PPLIs that I had, is locking this guy. The number 4 is having 2 targets, is a work in progress. Number 2 and 3 are targeting 2 different guys here. Okay, on my on this group, yeah, and you see these guys are splitting. Okay, these guys are gonna drop, I guess. Let me wait a little bit. Yeah, you see here one fighter track dropped by the number 4, and then now they are changing the targets. Some of the lock lines gonna drop. I guess one of these guys here. Let me see. Yeah, the number 4 changed his target.
We have one question.
Yeah.
I once saw a movie where it's where it's absolutely not allowed to cross the beams. Is that also true for log lines?
I have no idea. You need to share me the reference for that.
We will clear this.
Thank you. Okay, and it continues. This is the AI, and okay, let me just go forward. It continues, and then now you can see there is more action going on. You can see the donor 1 is locking 2 guys, probably the first and the secondary target is a work in progress. There is some dropping tracks here, not working properly in this first version. 2 and 4 is continue targeting their guys, and you can see the lock lines, and see donor 1, 2 and 3 are locking. Donor 2 is there, and the AI is making their party. They are going all the way for these poor MiG-21s and 23s here. Okay.
Great.
Okay, let me just continue here and so on. Okay, now, so that's pretty much I had to show you guys. Just want to conclude one thing is I hope that you enjoyed a little bit this overview. Link 16 for us was a massive development. At the end of Q4, it was a kind of 10,000 line of codes. We had 7 coders working on that. 2 of them are in the public here, Tech and Wolfie. 6 devs worked on that, wrote stuff. Micro worked a lot of that, writing up these guys. Heads off for Dusty on the documentation for the F-15. It was tested massively by a lot of people, Falcon Online guys. Micro helped out also, BMS internal external testers as well. At the end, we flew like 47 multiplayer missions. And we are kind of people from 16 countries and 6 continents working for develop all that. If you guys are interested on the where are the sources of that, you can see here where most of the general sources there, and on the right side you see snapshots of the heads-up display with all these fighter tracks. It can be very, very overloaded. Okay, that's pretty much from me, and thank you very much. Thank you.